Hey there, this is Michelle from Indie Author Blueprint, and today we're talking about cover design anxiety. This is one of the most surprising stress points in the entire publishing process. Most writers expect to wrestle with their structure and their marketing or their metadata, but cover design, this one kind of sneaks up on people because suddenly there's this pressure. We think we know what we want, and then there's self-doubt, and then we mix that with the excitement and the panic that says this is really happening. For indie authors, the cover isn't just a design choice. It feels really personal. You're the one giving direction to your designer, or you're the one doing the design. And so it feels like it's part of your identity. And then every bit of feedback, every critique, every reaction feels as if it's aimed at you, not at the artwork. So today we're going to unpack why cover anxiety shows up, what's really underneath it, and we'll look at some practical systems that will help you make strong decisions without overspending or underspending or approving a design that doesn't actually sell. So let's get into it. First, why covers feel so emotional. Cover design is vulnerable work. You've lived inside this manuscript for months or years. It holds your imagination, it holds your message, it holds your voice, and suddenly you're expected to condense all of that into a single image. Give it a title, choose some colors, choose some photography or artwork, and put it all together into something that sells, that makes somebody know your genre and understand what your book is about. So when someone reacts to your cover, it can feel like they're reacting to your entire book. Covers are the public-facing piece of the project, so we do need to spend a lot of time on thinking about it, and I have talked about that in some of the other episodes on Indie Author Blueprint, because there's way too many times where people don't give it any thought at all, and it very obviously looks self-published. But then we have to think about how to not get too creative. What do we do when the cover is, maybe somebody's input is just merely opinion. Maybe it is really sound advice. So we have to weigh all of those things out. And then there are those visual decisions that readers make, and that can be very subjective. It's not like editing where there's a rule where we look up a style guide and we know what to do. It's the design part is way more subjective. So if somebody says, I don't like that font on your cover, you have to think about it so much. You have to think about, is it that they just don't like it? It's personal preference, or is it really bad? Is it hard to read? Is it not appropriate for this genre? You have to think about all those things. And then many authors are not visual designers, so that whole process is unfamiliar. And then whenever you're in a place where something is unfamiliar, it also introduces anxiety. Let's talk then about several of the big cover fears that come up. And these are ones that is something I see in people discussing online and questions people have asked me as well. So the first one is overspending. Some authors are afraid they're going to put too much money into the design, and they are afraid of high price tags. And obviously there is a border where you could overspend. Obviously, you don't need a luxury designer, but you do need somebody who understands your genre and your market and knows how to make a book that gets uploaded and accepted and the color format is correct and all of that kind of stuff. And so you do need to think about spending enough and not expect to spend $25 to get a good cover, but you don't have to spend $1,000 to get a good cover either. So there are extremes on both ends. That leads into the second fear then, underspending. There is a fear of cutting corners and ending up with something that looks amateur. And this happens when I see authors try to do it themselves. They are treating it sort of like making a graphic that they're going to share on social media. So they go into Canva and they take a photograph from their phone and they put some text over it and they're done with it. And they don't really realize that this isn't a marketing tool. It's not decoration. for just a quick post. It's a marketing tool that stays around. And so what we put on social media is gone in a moment. What we put on a book cover sticks around because this is what people are using when they're shopping. So we want something that earns the click, that signals to the readers that this book belongs on the physical shelf in their office with their other books, in their bedroom, wherever they keep their big stack of books. You want them to want to add your book to their to be read pile. So there's a healthy middle ground between that bargain basement design and the boutique agency pricing. And most indie authors don't need extremes. And when you're trying to decide on the spending part, you also have to keep yourself in mind on, like, are you the kind of person who asks for revision after revision after revision because it just doesn't feel right? Or do you struggle with trusting what an expert recommends and you just have something in mind that you want them to go for? You have to keep that in mind because it's going to cost more if you're somebody who is looking for lots and lots of revisions, or if you're asking for like 5 or 6 different options from which to choose. All of that costs money because the designer has to put more time in. So keep that all in mind. And I go back to my days when I used to do flowers and stuff for weddings. I would have people come to me with these pictures of amazing tabletop arrangements that they wanted for their wedding. And then when they realized that each one of those pictured was probably $1,000 or more, they realized they were not going to be going for that. And so that happens with books too, where somebody comes with a cover image or something that has a lot of time put into it and they don't want to spend that amount of time. And I know with AI, people can spend less time, but we're not even going to go into AI right now. I do not personally use AI on the covers I do for my clients or for myself. Topic for another day. Okay, the third fear is approving something then that doesn't sell. And this one might keep people up at night. They're afraid to say yes to something because they don't know how to evaluate composition, genre signals, typography, psychology of color, all of those things. And they worry they'll fall in love with a cover that doesn't actually perform. And the thing is, covers are so subjective that even a really, really great cover might not perform. I've seen some covers that are artistically amazing where the designer has done something out of the box. It's really cool, but also it's not hitting the mark necessarily with every reader. And some of it is age and taste and all of that stuff. So the fear is that we're going to say yes to something we shouldn't have, but really the bottom line of that fear is that everybody's not going to love it, because there's going to be somebody who doesn't love it and there will be people who do. And so that's just how it is. That's how any artwork is, and your cover is still artwork. It's artwork with a title on it. So then what is under that anxiety? What is the cause, the root cause? And it really is, like I said before, something personal. It's vulnerability. It's fear of public rejection. It's the pressure of being both the writer and the publisher. And it's the weight of representing your creative work visually when you don't feel qualified to judge design. And yes, sometimes it's the fear that you'll miss one change that could have improved your sales, or worse, following the wrong advice altogether. Indie authors carry a lot. And I want to tell you that as a designer, I'm also an indie author, but as a designer, I struggle with this too. I have anxiety about creating covers for other people because I'm afraid that the cover I love might not be something that will sell their book, or later they'll have regret, or as I'm listening to input from an author and I sense they really like things visually busy and I'm trying to simplify while honoring what they want. In the end, I know that sometimes I land on something that either they're not happy with or I'm not. There have been times I follow the author's direction because they're very strong about what they want, and I don't love the finished result at all, but I'm really listening to the author because they are the one directing their project, and the best I can do is give my advice. There are other times where I think something needs a little bit more and I go over the top. And so it's it's a fine balance. And I know that books are not just stories. There's this whole piece. We're putting it together into a package. So we're evaluating all of these aspects of it as we work, and it can feel heavy. So let's talk then about how we can reduce some of that stress. What do we do to bring down that anxiety? And what do we need to know? First, it's helpful if you put together some covers you like and give those to your designer, or if you're designing and you work on that, and also to make sure that they are in the genre that you're writing in, that they are performing well. And for me, I don't look at just self-published books that came out recently, because sometimes those are a flash in the pan and then the popularity is gone. So I look at a lot of traditional publishers whose work has stuck around for a while. And when I'm working with an author, I ask them to give me like 3, but really when you're doing your research, you should look at 15 or 20 covers, a lot more in your genre that are performing well. And then when you're analyzing them, you want to look at typography, like what kind of fonts are used, what do they do with that, with the words on the title. The color palettes that are used, is there a kind of common theme, like a lot of reds, a lot of blues, a lot of yellows? What is the mood? Are there patterns? Is there a layout that's typical, like a central figure and a title? Like, where's the author name? All of that. Now, you'll see that there's a lot of books that don't follow any of those rules, so that there's a lot of space there. But in some genres, it's pretty tight on exactly the formula for creating a cover that sells. So you want to look at not only the genre, but then if you have specific authors within that are kind of your inspiration, then take a look. If it's an author who has a lot of books out, you might be able to look at all of their covers together and see what some of them have in common. And you'll notice that if their books are out for a while, their publishers start to redesign and re-release them with new covers too. So what worked 15 years ago is not what's working now. So also keep that in mind when you're looking to see, am I looking at a most current version of something and what's happening in the market? So knowing those things will help you in knowing how to direct your designer or how to do the design yourself. And then just make sure you have your budget in mind before you're shopping, so you don't have the panic in the moment of how much am I going to spend on my cover. You want to look at who's going to give feedback to you. So you don't want to just throw it out there on Facebook or on your social media and ask for input, because if you've ever seen surveys on covers, you will see that a crowd really muddies the waters. You won't have a consensus most of the time. For different reasons, you'll have people like completely different designs. So if you could form a small team of people to give your feedback, you want a trusted reader, maybe an author friend or someone who's familiar with your genre, and then someone who understands visual design basics to give you some input. If you're going with more than that, it's going to get confusing. And that's why once your book's out there, it's also very difficult to take feedback from too many people, because the opinions just vary, and the level of experience with knowing what you're going for also varies. The other thing is, when you're looking at your overall cover design, when you're looking at those ones in the genre, make sure you understand how big the text is and everything on the cover for the thumbnail size and selling on Amazon, because that's also going to make a difference in whether people can see the title of your book. And so you're going to be using that as how you evaluate a finished cover. You know, if your designer puts a teeny tiny little title in the middle of the cover, among other things, and you can't read the title, then you will end up with a disappointing product, because it will be hard for people to shop for it. So that's just an example of some of those little pieces that you're looking at. Now, when you're evaluating, after you have your feedback circle, you know who's going to look at your title, use a checklist. You can make your own checklist. It could be mental, it could actually be on paper, whatever you need, but your emotions are not as helpful as having a checklist. So here's an example. Does this cover give signaling that matches my genre? One of the things I do is I do a screenshot of a bookstore's page of that genre, and I take the little thumbnail of the book cover and put it over one of the covers in that whole layout. And I look to see, is the one I just designed for somebody, is it standing out like it doesn't belong here, or does it kind of blend in like it looks like it fits with these 24 covers or whatever is in that screenshot that I do? And that leads into the other thing on the checklist. Is it legible as a thumbnail? I just mentioned a minute ago that you need to be able to read the title, and not always the subtitle, but for sure the title. And so in that thumbnail size, you want to make sure that it's legible. The next thing is that you want to evaluate if the typography feels current and professional. I've seen some books come out lately with some really scripty fonts on them that they don't feel current first, but they're also real thin, and maybe they've done some outlining and things to try to make them stand out a little bit, but it just really is a font that doesn't work for a book cover. It might be beautiful on your Christmas card, but it just doesn't work on a book cover. So look at that. Look at if something is using a scripty style or a block style or a serif style or whatever in that genre. Are they thick lettering? Are they thin? You need to evaluate the other covers in that genre and see, does what I just created here align with that? And you will quickly see when you put them side by side that the typography is obvious if it doesn't fit in that genre. Another question to ask is, does the cover make sense next to those top sellers? Okay, so not only does it match the genre, but does it make sense next to the other things selling there? Does it give off vibes that say it belongs here? Another question you might be asking is, does it attract my ideal reader more than it pleases me personally? So it might be something very special to the author, but the reader who's looking for a book might have no connection to it at all. So if we're trying to incorporate that, does it work in a way that it still resonates with the reader, or does it make it feel like it doesn't belong for the reader? All of these things are decision-making tips, and you're going to make a list of things you're looking for as well based on your genre. And you want to be subjective and strategic and not be driven by just emotions. So there are times when you get your samples back. You might have one that, oh, I love this. I love the feel of this. And then you realize, oh, but that would be better on a greeting card and not on a book. So you can eliminate some of those that way. All right, so what happens when you get some feedback and you have to figure out how to process it? One thing that's really important is to make sure that one strong opinion doesn't derail everything. And there's a lot of anxiety that comes when we give too much weight to one single voice. So you might put it out there on social media, or you might be putting it out there to some other people that you know in the industry who are helping you. And someone might say, you should change that font. Or someone says, that image doesn't work. And you're already feeling vulnerable, so you treat that opinion like gospel. Like you might throw out everything you've done and start all over. Or you might make change after change after change because of that kind of input. And it's important to remember that one loud opinion is not data, and their taste is not the market. Their instincts might not align with the genre expectations at all, depending on their level of professionalism. So this is like using your swipe. There's times you're going to just swipe that little piece of feedback off into your archives and you're going to move forward. And you're not going to base changes on one person's personal taste. This can actually even be a professional who knows what they're doing. There are some times where if you put 3 professionals on a panel and you gave them all the same cover designs, they might all have vastly different opinions about what needs to be changed on that cover. And I've seen this happen. And so that's also something to weigh out, is that they might have completely different opinions about the image, the color, the font, everything. So All of these things, we just take the feedback in and we weigh it out without instantly making changes, without thinking it through. How then do we handle critique without feeling crushed? Because this is really hard, and it's hard for me, especially when I'm the one doing the design as well. And so it's very emotional. And so let's talk about those emotions. A critique of the cover is not a critique of your writing or your message or your capability as an author. So that's really important to remember as well. But it's also to keep in mind that people are not offended when they're saying this. They're not really judging you. They're actually trying to help you align your artwork and your cover with what sells in your market. So we want to assume that they have good intentions. And when we think of it that way, it's less crushing than thinking they're judging me, they're mad at me, or something like that. And it's important to know that our cover is not going to please everyone. So we're trying to please our ideal reader. So if someone doesn't like it, it's helpful information, but if we take that to heart and it crushes us, then it just kind of stops us right where we are. And critique really isn't about you, it's about alignment. So if somebody's critique is not really helping you align with your ideal audience, then you can say, thank you, I appreciate that, and you can move on. If it's aligned to your target reader, then you weigh it a little bit more. You give it a little more credence, and you decide, is this kind of feedback something that's going to help me align with that audience, that reader? So that helps sometimes to take out that emotional piece and to see it as improving. It's still hard. I'll tell you, I try that and it's still hard. There are still times when the critique just hits me in the gut. So we do this, we practice this, and we keep practicing. I'm still practicing a lot of that. So before we close out here, I want to think about reframing the pressure a little bit. Cover design does not have to feel like a pressure cooker. It's really about a skill set. It's about stepping into that role of publisher and understanding that it comes with some decisions that stretch you. It comes with learning things about design and learning things about the market that you maybe didn't think about before. And the gift of being an indie author is that nothing truly is permanent. If your cover underperforms, you can pivot. And remember, if you're evaluating this, there's a lot of factors that go into it. So before you just change out your cover, I've had people who I've seen them online put their cover out there on a group or a forum or something, and everybody's telling them your cover is why it's not selling. And then I open their book and I realize their editing is a big challenge or something like that. Or maybe they haven't put any effort into actually marketing and getting people to see it. And so they don't even know if they've had clicks on their cover. Or they see that they've had clicks and not sales, and they assume that means something was wrong with it. And you have to understand that all of those pieces don't indicate whether it's good or bad. Over time, if you have zero sales, obviously you have to try to figure out what you're going to do differently. But to just immediately start changing covers, it could be a lateral move. It might not make any difference. It might be that the market is just so saturated right now in that genre. But nothing is permanent. So if you really, really think your cover is underperforming, you can pivot, you can revise, you can test it out, you can release a refreshed version. So traditional authors don't really get that flexibility, but you do. When you see cover design then as this iteration, it's something you can iterate in the publishing process and not just a one and done moment, then the pressure drops and the clarity rises. And you might have to pay your designer some money to make some changes. It's okay. Oftentimes they're tweaks, they're not very expensive. So you can do that as well. If this episode has helped you to rethink your cover anxiety a little bit, I hope that it gives you some peace, that it helps you to think through and release the pressure a little bit and know that you're not alone and know that other indie authors are going through this as well. And if it really has resonated with you, I encourage you to share it with another indie author who's going through that process, because we're all in this together. I want to give you a challenge, a little bit of homework for you if you're looking for something, a next step, an action that you can take. If you're in the place where you're thinking about either creating a cover for your book or revising a cover, something you have out already. I want to encourage you to go onto your favorite book retailer online, look at the exact category that your book is in, and grab a bunch of cover images that are similar to one another, like they all speak to that genre. So don't pick the one that's really far out there. It could be self-published, so it's hard to say. But save those covers in a folder or put them into a PDF or something like that. And then make some notes, like a sentence on each one about what makes it effective, whether it's the typography, the color palette, the mood, or the layout. Then create a visual guide. Put all those thumbnails together and look at them. And see if you can come up with a sentence or two that describes that genre overall, what the cover feels like, and what do they all have in common? Is it a similar typography? Is it a similar kind of image? Is it all dark, light, characters looking away from the camera? Is there something fantasy-like? Is it photo-based or is it illustration? Is it artwork? That kind of thing, okay? So look at what makes them all feel like they fit together. Then use that when you're beginning the discussions with your designer or you're beginning your thoughts about redesigning or starting from scratch. And so that's the great place for you to start. Put together that design brief, basically, that gets you to a starting point. If you're looking for tools and checklists and behind the scenes teaching on the publishing side of things, you'll find that at Indie Author Blueprint on Substack. I want to thank you for listening today, and I always wish you well on your publishing journey wherever you are, whether you're just beginning or whether you're very experienced. I'm here to support you. So come on over and join the conversation on Substack by leaving a comment.